elsewhere. All right, so we're going to start off showing you what are some of the things that you can do to kind of close out your Google Classroom, maybe get prepared for next year. These are optional, nothing is required, but they're good habits to get into, and it's a good thing to know what's going on behind the scenes to help you understand Google Classroom even better. So I'm going to share my screen with you and get started. Okay, so Dawn, can you see my screen?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, perfect. Alrighty, so the first thing I'm going to show you to do is how to return student work to your students. Is it required? No. However, let's explain why you might want to do it, especially if you have older students. If you don't return student work, you are the owner of that work, and they can only view it. Their work, but they can only view it. They can never edit it again. Also, if you delete it while you're still the owner, it deletes from them and they can't even view it then. So for most of us, the elementary level, the younger kids, it's really not a big deal. But as the students are older, you know, they put more effort into their work, they might want to save their work, so that you might consider that. So I'm going to show you, there's two ways that you can return student work. I'm only going to show you one way, the way I think is a little quicker and easier, but both ways are described on that document that we shared with you. So you can look there, and there's pictures for the second way to step-by-step talk you through it. So I'm going to talk you through the one way that I like to do it. So I'm going to go to the class that I want to return the student work. So I'm on my Google dashboard, my classroom dashboard, and here is my tile. And so I'm just going to open it up, and it takes me into my Google Classroom. And then you'll see on the grades, oh wait, did I move that? Sorry. Let me move that back. On the grades tab, when you click on that, it will open up all of the assignments going across the top that you have. So what you can do to remove student work is click on the three dots, the menu for each assignment. So I click on the menu, which is the three dots, and I click Return All. That pops up here. When I click Return All, I'll have the option here to leave a comment for all students, or I don't have to do that, so I'm not going to do that. You might want to write, "Great job on this assignment, everybody. I enjoyed reading your stories," whatever. That's something you might want to do during the year. You should probably get into a good habit of returning work during the year as you go along, after you check them, just return it all to them. But since we probably didn't do that for most of us, you're going to have to return them all now if you're doing that. So I would just click the return button and not write a comment. It's up to you though. So once I return it to them, that's interesting. It should have gotten check marks in the box, but it did not. Let me try that again on this one. Return all, return. Huh. You're supposed to get a check mark saying that you returned it. I don't know why it's not doing it. Maybe because those were really actually kind of fake assignments. There was no work really attached to those, so that might be it. But either way, if there's nothing in the column, or if there are check marks in the column, that means your work is done because there's nothing to return. So if you go to a column and it has a grayed out return all, that means there's nothing to return. So you're all set. So usually when the columns are completely blank, you don't have to worry about them. It's only when the columns have work to turn in. So I've turned in everything that had work. So now I should be good to go. So you may not need to return in all columns, or if you know the assignment is something that really the kids don't really need to have back, you don't have to worry about it. So just worry about returning those assignments that the kids would want to have access to. So that's the first way to return work. Any questions on that so far? You can either unmute or put it in the chat. Okay, I'm going to move on to how to remove students from your class. This is probably more important. So you want to remove students because even if you archive your class, your students will always have access to it if you don't remove them, all the way up through high school till they leave this, until they no longer have this email address. They will always have access to the class in their archived folder, in their archived section of Google Classroom. And if you don't archive your class, it will always show up in their dashboard unless they remove it from their dashboard or they unenroll themselves. So you might want to do this. However, it was brought up in one of the other classes that if they wanted the students to have access to this work over the summer, maybe to do some practice, then you don't unenroll them now. If that's what you plan on doing, you can do this in September. But if you're done and your kids are done and you're not having them go back into this Google Classroom over the summer, then you can just go ahead and unenroll them now. So what you'll do is you'll go to the People tab in that class that we were just in. You go to the People tab, you click the checkbox at the top under Students, and it will highlight all your students. And all of this is written on that document that we shared with you in the invite, and it's also will be in our Bitmoji classroom. Then next to that checkbox, you click on Actions, and you click Remove. Once you click Remove, it will remove the students who accepted the class. And that's fine, because once we archive it, nobody else will be able to accept. And then I will hit Remove. And actually removed them all. Okay, so now I have no students in my class. Now I'm ready to move on to the next step. Are there any questions about removing students from the class? Okay, so now I'm going to go to archive my class. I'm going to go back to my classroom dashboard. So I'm going to go back to all classes over here with my hot dog menu. And before you archive your class, you may want to think about if you want to copy the class. You don't have to make the decision now, but since you're in here working, you might want to just take care of that little task. So you would want to copy a class. If you think you're going to use the assignments from that class again with your next year's class. So if you had this all set up and you had your topics and all of your assignments under the topics and your attachments to those assignments, and you thought, I'm going to use these again next year, you can go ahead and make a copy of this class, and it will put all of those assignments and topics into draft mode. So nobody will see them until you actually assign them, but they're there for you. You don't have to go and find them and reuse posts. It's already set up for you, and you don't ever have to actually assign them. If you change it, you can delete it. You can just leave it in draft mode. But so it's a time saver. If you set up a class that you want to reuse in the future with assignments, you want to go ahead and copy the class. So before you archive it. If you don't copy the class and you do archive it, you can always go back to your archives. We'll show you how to do this, and you can copy the class from there or unarchive your class, restore your class. So the way that we're going to copy the class is we're going to, from the Google Classroom dashboard, go to the tile and click on the menu option here for the 3 dots, and we're going to just say copy. The only thing you have to do is give it a name. So right now it's called copy of the class, and you can leave it that way if you wanted to, but I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm just going to write 2021 at the end. Okay, and then click copy. It's going to start making a copy and show its tile in a moment on my dashboard. It's doing all the work. It's taking all the assignments, putting them into draft mode. It's not supposed to take the stream, but when I copied one of the other classes before, it took the stream, which is weird, but the new students won't see the old stream because you only see what's been added since you joined. So, okay, so there is my newly created or in the process of creating preschool class for next year. So I'm ready to archive this year's class. I've already returned all work. I've removed students. I'm ready to archive it. I'm going to go to the 3 dots in the top of the card or tile, and I'm going to go down to where it says archive. I'm going to click archive. It's going to remind me that no more changes can be made to this while it's in the archive mode, but that all of the files that were created in the class will still stay in my Google Drive. Okay, so you'll still have access to all of the student work or the templates that you made and all of that in your own classroom, in your classroom folder on your Google Drive, but it won't be on this dashboard. So I'm just going to say archive. So now that original preschool class is gone, and I'm left with the one I just created, and I'm set to go for next year. If for any reason you need to go find that archived class, you're going to go to the hamburger menu in the top left. You're going to go all the way down. And right above where it says settings, you'll see it says archived classes. So when I click on that archived classes option, these are the classes that I have archived so far. You'll notice that even the classes I'm a student in are here. because, well, at least one of them, this class for period 5, Mr. McDonald's class, I was not a teacher in this class, I was a student, and he archived the class, but it's in my archived area of my Google Classroom because he didn't unenroll me or remove me from the class. So I can actually go into this class, I can see the classwork. Oh, I can see his stream because he archived it. That's right, it wasn't a copy. I can see all the assignments. I can see the people who were in the class with me. I can email them. So if you don't want your students to be able to do that, to see everything, that's why you would unenroll them before you archived it. This is more important for the upper grade levels where they might share assignments with their friends who are taking the class after them. Not so much a big problem in the elementary level, but still, it's good to know that that's what's going to happen. The students can still see it. So let's say I archived this class here and then I wanted to make a copy of it. I never made a copy last year and I decided I'm going to use it again. You can just come in here, click on the menu and then click copy. If you wanted to restore the class for some reason, you can hit the restore button. But just so you know, you can still reuse posts from archived classes. So you don't need to restore a class in order for you to reuse posts from them in future classes. So you can still, even though it's archived here, you'll still have access to it in the reuse post section. If you delete the class, if you click on that that menu option and then you click delete, you will not be able to reuse posts from this class. And no co-teacher that's been borrowing posts from this class will be able to reuse posts from this class either. So you want to be careful about deleting unless you're 100% sure that nobody is going to need the posts from this class again. But if you just archive it, it's out of your way, it's off your dashboard, you don't ever see it unless you go to that special little archived area of your screen, of your classroom. Okay, any questions about, we've gone over removing returning student work, removing classrooms, making a copy of a classroom, and archiving a classroom, and finding your archived classrooms. So any questions about that before we move on to the other stuff related to Google Classroom? Okay, you can, if you think of something, just put it in the chat. So I'm going to stop presenting, and I think Dawn's going to take over and show you how to handle some of that residual stuff that comes with having a Google Classroom.
Okay, so when you create a Google Classroom, you not only get the classroom, you get a calendar that goes with that classroom, you have stuff from the students going to your shared with me, and you have a folder in your drive that's for Google Classroom. So we're going to just show you a couple ways to clean up all of that. So I'm going to share my screen with you. And hopefully you're all looking at my calendar now. So if you look on the side here where it says My Calendars and you click on this down arrow, you are going to see all the calendars associated with you. You're going to have your personal calendar. You're going to see any calendars that have been shared with you. And you're also going to see a number of calendars for any classroom that you're a co-teacher in, a student in, or the owner of. Now, if you don't want to look at these calendars, you can just hide them. So I could click on these 3 buttons right here, 3 dots, and I could click hide from list, and then that calendar would be hid from my list. What I could also do is I could delete that calendar if I want it completely gone. So to do that, I'm going to go next to the calendar also. I'm going to click on the 3 dots, and I'm going to go to settings and sharing. Once I get into settings and sharing, I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom, and I'm going to click on delete. So this calendar will be permanently erased. Nobody will be able to use it anymore. So if I click on delete, I'm going to get a message, do I want to delete it permanently? I would just click on delete permanently. And then to get back to your list, you're just going to use that arrow, and then I can see, again, the calendars. Does anybody have a question on how to hide or delete a calendar? Okay, so now I'm going to go to Google Drive, and let's talk about shared with me. When you are in a Google Classroom, you are going to get all of the documents that your students have worked on in your shared with me. And it's going to be, I'm in a lot of classrooms, so I have a lot of them, but you're going to get everything the kids have submitted here. If you do not want those documents in your shared with me, you can get rid of them. You could just leave them there, and it really isn't going to make any sort of difference. But if you don't want them there, as a number of people have said to us they don't, you can delete them. But the thing to remember is that make sure you returned the work first. If you delete the work and it has not been returned to the students, it's just gone. You want to make sure you return the work first, and then you could go to your shared with me and you could delete the links to that work. You wouldn't be deleting the actual work. You would just be deleting the links to that student work. So if this work was already returned, I could click on it. I could go to the trash can, or I could right click on it and delete it that way. It's up to you. But just the only thing you need to make sure is that you return it first before you get rid of it from your shared with me. And again, you don't have to do that. Does anybody have any questions on that? Okay, so finally, let's talk about your folder, your Google Classroom folder. Whenever you create a Google Class, you are going to get a folder. And it's going to be called Classroom. I made it a color and put a star next to it just so it's easy to find. And if you open up that folder, you are going to see every class associated with your Google Classroom. So for all of those little tiles that I have a folder. Now, again, you could leave them there, but if you wanted to make it look neater for next year, what you could do is you could create another folder for this year's stuff. So you had one folder with everything in it. And then for next year, you wouldn't have this whole long list there. That would all be in one of these folders. And I had created a couple before for the other classes, but I'll show you how to do that. So I'm in my drive, I'm in my classroom, I click on the down arrow, and all I need to do is create, new folder. So I'm going to give it a name. Whatever you want it to be, and I'm going to create it. It's up here at the top. Now what I can do is I could take everything from this current year and I could either drag it into that folder, or I could right click on it, say move to, and then find that folder I created and put it in there and click on move. Then when I open that folder, I'll see anything that I moved into it. And then if I open that folder, I would see all those things. So you still have all those assignments, all those things that you created, but they're not sitting in this list for next year. So it just makes it a little bit cleaner. And again, that's not anything you have to do. That's just something that might make it easier for you to find things for next year.